I want to apologise to everybody for being 5 minutes late. We were on a different call, which was always from 5 till 6, and then getting all of this tech and stuff set up. So I just want to thank everybody for their patience. We've not got many people on just now, but normally takes a couple of minutes for people to join anyway. But a lot of folk will watch this on replay. So if you're watching it live, then let us know in the comments, just write live. And if you're watching it on replay, just write replay. But I just want to welcome everybody that's watching, especially anyone that's new to me, new to coaching, new to Harry, or anyone that's struggling. You're definitely in the right place. And I just want to acknowledge you for choosing this over anything else that you could be doing today and with your evening. So thank you for that. So I'm Andrea, Dominant Mindset Coach, and this is Harry that's with me. And Harry, I wanted you on because you do so much amazing stuff with women, especially in all around emotional eating and really looking into like the reasons behind why we eat the way that we do. So I've got a massive list of questions that I want to ask you. Like, I'm so into this. So I guess the first thing that I want to ask you is just, can you just introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Yeah, of course. So obviously my name's Harry, and I work specifically with women who have emotional eating problems. And the women I work with, they've tried to lose weight for years and years, 5, 10, 15, 20, even 30 years. And they've been trying the same things over and over again, but they feel compelled to eat. So they can never go in one direction. They're always being pulled back by their cravings and they don't know what's going on. So that's what I do. I work with women with these kinds of problems.
Okay. And what would you say your main expertise is in?
So it's about helping people with their cravings. So when they don't know how to deal with this urge, this feeling that comes across them, and they want to do well, they want to eat the thing that they think should be right, but they feel this urge and this compulsion to eat something else.
And is that how you would describe emotional eating?
So for different people, emotional eating could mean different things, but there's certain words I like to use. So obviously emotional eating is one that comes to mind, but binge eating, sugar addiction, urges, compulsions, food addiction, there's many different words, but for me, they all kind of mean the same thing. And if we want to put a label to them, group them all together, I find something that works well is not being able to live in alignment with your values. So if you continuously break promises to yourself and say you're going to do something and then go against it, you're undermining yourself. And this is what kind of binge eating and emotional eating does to you.
And you feel that, don't you? When you go against yourself, I get it here. Like, that's where I feel it is in the pit of my stomach. And I go, oh, I'm not liking that. I'm out of integrity with myself.
Exactly. And it can show up in so many other areas of your life, because if you're undermining yourself with your food, then you trust yourself less. And this can manifest itself in so many different areas, like work, with relationships, with so many different things. So just an example, I was speaking to someone the other day and they were not progressing in their career. It's because they were emotionally eating. They didn't trust themselves anymore, and they didn't speak up, and they didn't go for promotions, or they didn't speak out when they needed to in the office because they didn't trust themselves. And that's what I mean by, like, it can manifest itself in so many different ways.
Oh, my days. And I mean, I think everybody that's watching, you're here for a reason, right? There's something that's going on for you that means that you're here because there's something that you want to learn. And I think most of us can definitely relate to that, like the stress that comes with calorie counting, or I'm definitely a bit of a late night binger. Like, sometimes I'll not have time to eat all day, and then I will just cram food into my mouth at night. So like, do you have, I mean, that's my kind of story around it, and I've always been a kind of up and down sort of eater, and that the way that I describe it is I eat the way that I drank. So it's either all or nothing, like, and that was the kind of cycle that I went through for a long, long time. Some people call it bulimia, but I just called it kind of alcoholic eating. But I'm interested to know, like, what's your story around this? Like, how come this is important to you? What's your personal stuff?
Great question. And a lot of people sort of think, oh, why is a man helping women with emotional eating? Like, what is there to it? So the thing that drove me to helping women with this is that I had an emotional eating problem, and I was someone that my friends looked up to. Oh, you're always fit and healthy. But for a lot of people, emotional eating doesn't necessarily mean putting on weight. For a lot, it does. But I knew how to regulate my weight. I knew the tricks because that's what I studied. So I had this problem with emotional eating, but I would do stuff to account for it. So I do like hundreds of thousands of steps per week. I would eat hardly anything throughout the day, or eat really, really low calorie food so I could eat so much in one go. And people saw me doing this, but they saw me as kind of like a hero in a way. And they kind of championed it. They say, "Oh my god, you can eat so much and not put on weight." They'd offer me more food when they couldn't eat their food at the restaurant and give it to me. I'd always have all the leftovers and things like that. And the big thing that a lot of people will realize with emotional eating is it consumes you. It's the thinking around food. So the thoughts around food in your mind and having to plan things, decide around food, and it's completely overwhelming. So when you couple that with being overweight as well, then that's when the problem gets like even worse, because you then want to solve two problems in one. And so a lot of people don't know what to do. They get confused and they do extreme things, which often end up in a worse situation. And I'll go on to that in a little bit.
And like, so it sounds like there's a few layers to this whole problem. Like, it's not just the I just can't lose weight. It's something a lot deeper than that. Like, what would you say those layers are?
So, in terms of actually solving the problem or having the problem?
I guess both.
Yeah. So, one of the biggest problems I find with people is they don't know how to regulate their emotions or manage their emotions without the use of food. So, for a lot of people, they don't realize that what they actually want is a change of feeling, a change of state. So, it's not the food they want. So, if you imagine like 2 points, so try to get some camera from A to B. So, you're feeling a certain way and you're feeling another way. You're feeling negative, bored, down some way, and you want to feel positive. Food is just the route between those two things. And there's nothing wrong with eating nice food, but if it's not helping you reach your goal, then it can be detrimental. And so if we think about, it's this change in feeling we want, not the food, and the food is an external thing which we're using to get that change in feeling. Now, it could be something else. It could be alcohol, it could be drugs, it could be shopping, it could be gambling. It's many external things that can have detrimental effects. And when we think about how our brain works, the survival part of our brain, it looks out for danger. And if we're feeling negative, if we're stressed, if we're tired, it wants to use the quickest and easiest way to change the way we feel. And so if we've learned food is that way, then it will give us cravings to do that. It doesn't care about your future, it doesn't care about your goals. It cares about the now, because if you're not around in the future, then what's the point about the now? So yeah, it does what it knows to change the way you feel. So the point with that is everything, even though it might seem negative, has a benefit to you. So the brain thinks this food is helping you, so it makes you want to eat it.
Okay. Someone's just put a comment in saying that they are alcoholic and they had issues with binge eating. Their take, sorry, I can't see who, all it says is Facebook user, so I'm so sorry that I don't know what your name is, but feel free to pop it into the chat. But it says, I'm an alcoholic and had issues with binge eating. My take is that it's a brain chemistry issue, a lot of which I'm powerless about. I'm only speaking for me and no one else. So what would you say to that, Harry?
So I'm not qualified around alcohol, but what I can say is there are two types of addiction. So there's a psychological addiction, which is like a skill or a habit you can learn, and that is like food and gambling, stuff like that. But then there's a physiological addiction where it's drugs, alcohol, things like that, where your brain chemistry, and I don't know if this is linking to this question or not, where your brain chemistry is actually changed, or your brain chemistry requires that substance to you actually function normally. And being an alcoholic is often a combination of both of them, the psychological and physiological. So from my limited knowledge, if you're coming off alcohol or drugs, it's dangerous in a way because your body actually needs that substance. So you have to manage it in a certain way. But if you are, or if your brain has learned something, then it might replace it with something else. So if you are, for example, coming off alcohol and your brain needs another way to change the way you feel, you might learn, again, accidentally. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just an accidental habit you've learned, that food is a quick and easy way to do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I used to go to recovery meetings, and you would see people who had been sober for a long, long time, and they're like 10, 15 biscuits. And I was the same. Like I jumped from alcohol to biscuits, and then from biscuits to Haribo. At one point I put Haribo in the freezer to try and slow me down, like slow down the eating of it. But
it's nice when the freezer.
all I did was crack my back tooth. Like it's not a great idea for me. But so I want to paint a scenario and see what you say to it. So let's pretend that by some freak chance a doctor told you that you had some sort of life-threatening illness, right? So you're going to die unless you reach a healthy weight within 90 days and maintained it. That's it, you're gone. So, based on your approach, what would be your plan to save your life?
Cool. A really good question. So most people, when they are trying to lose weight, they go for like, how can I lose weight as quick as possible?
Yeah.
And they jump on like all the stuff that's out there on the internet that you'll find. And these ways of losing weight are very short term. And I won't go into all the reasons why, because there's quite a lot of reasons. But one of the reasons is that they are just solving one problem.
Yeah.
And that problem is, how do I eat?
Yeah.
There's so many different problems, which I'll go into in 1 second. But just before I do that, I'll explain a little bit about that. So most of these methods, they can make you lose weight because they're just going to reduce your calories. They do it in a way that makes it completely unsustainable. And so, yes, you will get results with them, but it's always going to be short term. Now, to lose weight long term, you need three things. Well, I can split it into three things. So you need to solve your physical cravings.
Yeah.
So physical cravings are your body's needs. So getting enough vitamins and minerals and protein, fats, and carbohydrates, so that you're not actually like screaming out for nutrients. Your body needs to have what it needs to survive and function normally. So a lot of people are on silly diets and they're depriving themselves and they're not getting enough nutrients in. And so a lot of the cravings come from actually just not having enough nutrients to start with. So this is the first layer. This is what we need to look at first. Also, on top of that, taking away counting points, counting calories, weighing food as well, because this causes like stress and overwhelm and creates what we call a perfectionism mindset. So when we feel we need to be perfect, when we can't, we do nothing. All we know how to do is be totally on it, perfect on the diet, or totally off it, and nothing in between. So we have these big swings of I'm totally on the diet and being perfect, but I ate an extra calorie today, so I'm off the diet, I did it wrong. I'll start again on Monday or whatever. So a lot of diets don't work because of that reason. So we need to make the sort of what we call baseline nutrition as simple as possible, without counting things to like extreme perfection, but also covering all the like the body's needs. And just to briefly cover that, with my clients, we just used visual portion sizes and it works amazingly. You still got great results.
Excellent.
A lot of people So sorry, go on.
Can I just check in with everybody that's watching? Like, who is identifying with a lot of this stuff? Like, the I'm on the diet, I'm off the diet, there's no in between, or that perfectionism, we counting calories or counting points and try to be perfect at it. And if you can't be perfect, it goes in the bin. Like, who's just put like a yes or a thumbs up or something and just let us know if this is something that you can identify with or that you're relating to.
And can I just say as well that a lot of
Just me. Good.
yeah, a lot of personal trainers will use calorie counting
Yeah.
to vilify the diet industry, saying, "Oh, don't do slimming well, do calorie counting instead. It's just as bad."
Okay, good. Okay. So there was another layer though, wasn't there, that you were going
Yeah,
to
two more layers.
when I jumped on there? Sorry.
So the next layer is looking at emotional cravings. So that is the process of learning how to regulate your emotions and create an internal feeling rather than using external things to change the way you feel. So, like I said a few minutes ago, a lot of people, well, I'll start again actually just from that little explanation. So, a lot of people are using food. So, what they want is a change in feeling rather than the actual food. So, they're going from a negative state to a positive state, whether it's boredom, like just feeling down, or even sometimes you might just feel okay, you just want to get some pleasure in your life. But the point is they're using food to change the way they feel. It's not really the food, it's the change of feeling. So we need to be able to do that internally without something external. So food is external. And being able to learn how to regulate your emotions internally can take you away from that need then to be continuously compelled by your body to solve that problem with something that doesn't help you solve your goal. So
Excellent.
that is number two. And I'm sure a lot of people here will identify with cravings because everyone gets cravings.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to deal with them. A lot of people can read articles on the internet and they'll give sort of short-term solutions like strategies, but these strategies only work for like a day or so until you next get the craving. Like you said, putting stuff in the freezer, it doesn't really solve the problem. It's
No,
a
I just
coping strategy.
ended up with a dental bill.
Exactly. Makes the problem worse.
I once had a trainer who we used to meet up every month. It was like a whole group of us. And she was a competitive bodybuilder, like in incredible shape. And she actually said to the whole group one day, I don't drink because there's no calories in cocaine. And I was like, did I hear that? Like, it was just the most bizarre thing. But there was a lot of kind of, like, when I heard that, there was a lot of kind of everyone just looking at each other like, is she for real? So I think even when you see a lot of people who are supposedly like the gurus and like amazing at this stuff just because they're in great shape doesn't mean that what they're doing is actually healthy. Like,
No,
and they're not
it's a
really tackling any of the deeper stuff.
yes. I will say there's a huge hidden problem in the fitness world, both with personal trainers and fitness competitors. And I've had clients who are personal trainers, nurses, like all those kind of people that you think they know how to deal with food, but no, like it's something that's hard to deal with for a lot of people.
Jeez, oh. So, what would you say would be the very first step that someone struggling with emotional weight loss needs to take?
So going back to what I said a few minutes ago, it is like making sure you're getting rid of all this like perfectionism because it's the biggest problem. So don't count points, don't count calories, don't weigh food, bring it back. And a lot of people get scared because they think if I'm less perfect, I'm going to get less results. But in actual fact, you get better results because you're more consistent.
Yeah.
And it's an illogical thing for a lot of people because what they've done is they've failed so many times, and every single time they fail, they think, "Oh, that was my fault. I need to be more on it. I'm going to be even more perfect. I'm going to do even more exercise. I'm going to rein it in even more. I'm going to be totally on it." And all that does is actually just create more stress, more overwhelming, it increases the cravings, it makes it worse. I'm laughing because it sounds silly, but people make it more and more extreme. But there's only a certain amount of extremity you can get to until you can't go any further. You can't reduce your calories any further. You can't run any further, or you can't do any more exercise. And then what happens then when you're not getting results. So it's reining it back, reducing the stress, reducing the overwhelm, and making it simpler so you can eat and still have fun and still lose weight and still enjoy your life. And that's what you need to be able to do to like actually lose weight long term.
Okay, and then what would be the second step? So they've got rid of the perfectionism and all of that kind of stuff. What's the next step?
So a lot of people, I say probably most people have issues with self-worth. So they feel that they'll only be happy, they'll only be enough when they lose weight. So everything they're doing is about proving something, because unless they prove something, they don't feel enough. So everything from their results to their actions in the day around other people is about proving something. So, for example, people say to me, I need to weigh myself all the time. Why is that? And because you get your motivation from constantly seeing results, and you constantly need to see results to feel that you're enough. Because if you're not getting results, then what's the point? Because you need that motivation from constantly seeing progress towards your goal, because it's so important, because you need to get there, because unless you get there, you don't feel enough. And then there's the stuff around other people. So how do you act around other people? Are you trying to prove yourself? Are you people pleasing? Are you showing up in ways that you wouldn't otherwise? And what stress and overwhelm does that cause? And how do you release that? Food. How have you learned to release that? Food or alcohol or whatever your addictions might be. So like, that is so important, because otherwise you're operating from this desperation mindset. It makes you do silly things, makes you want it now, which makes you make decisions that are just illogical and just based on, I want it now, I need it now. So unless you're able to do that, you're always going to be yo-yo dieting and like just desperate.
Do you think that comes back to a lot of childhood, where if you were crying, you get a sweetie to appease you, or if you were upset, or if you were good, you get a chocolate biscuit, or it was like, because I was given that a lot. I was given Haribo. If I was good in the shops, I get Haribo. If I was crying, I'd get Haribo. If I bumped my knee, I get Haribo.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting thing to think about. And a lot of people will ask me like, I can't remember when this happened, or why I've got this problem. And yes, like conditioning from your past, whenever it was in your past, will have led to this. The thing I will say though is that you don't need to know. A lot of people will think, I need to go into therapy, I need to work out exactly why I have this problem. But I'll use an analogy to explain why that's not necessary.
Analogies. I'm excited for that.
So one of my favorite analogies, the tennis analogy. So let's say you want to learn tennis, and you go with the coach and you stand on the tennis courts, and they give you the tennis racket and the ball, or they're throwing a ball at you, and you're hitting the ball wrong, hitting it in the incorrect way. So they tell you, we need to change this. So to hit the ball correctly, do you need to know in minute detail and go over and over and over again why you're doing it wrong, and understand completely in all the like aspects of why you're doing it wrong and how you're doing it wrong to actually improve? And of course, the answer is no. You just need to know how to do it instead. And in actual fact, doing that, going over and over again, you're making it worse, because you're bringing back those memories. Like if we think about the memories from the past, you're bringing back memories from the past, changing the way you feel into negative ways. And all you learn is why you have the problem rather than solving it. So to actually solve the problem, you just need to know what you need to do instead. It doesn't matter. It's nice to know, right, why you have that problem, but it doesn't help you move forward. So a lot of people that go into therapy, they know very well why they have the problem, but they still have the problem. And that's why it's very important to be able to move forward and know how to solve it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So someone's put a comment in, and someone's put a question in. The comment, I'm a mental health nurse who can explain emotional regulation to others, help and support them to make positive changes to their lives regarding alcohol, drugs, self-harm and food, but personally struggle with my own self-worth and emotional regulation. And so what would you say back to that, Harry?
Yeah, and that's very normal. Like I've had clients who work in the mental health space, and they say like, I don't feel like I'm showing up as the person I should be because I have similar problems myself. And so it is a very common thing. And again, you're not broken if you have these problems. It's just like a habit and a skill that your survival brain is using to, well, it thinks it's giving you a benefit from it. Obviously, it's not, especially if you have a weight loss goal and you're trying to lose weight.
Do you think being in that space maybe piles on a wee bit extra pressure that you have to live up to this, like, I'm supposed to be the one that knows how to figure this out, and like creates more of a like beating yourself up type of thing? Is that something that you've seen, Harry?
Yeah, and especially going back to the self-worth, because like I said, if you don't necessarily believe that you yourself are able to solve this problem for yourself,
Yeah.
doing it for other people, even though you can show up as a person that is confident and supportive, deep down, it's there, and you have to put on a front then, which is, again, it takes energy to do that. And when you're using energy unnecessarily, it can create more stress in your life. And again, loop back around into how to relieve that through what we've learned. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's a looping problem.
And the question that we've got here, what about people who want to lose weight, but there's a secondary gain, like they've maybe been assaulted and they want to stay attractive, they want to stay, sorry, unattractive, so that, and there's that kind of thing that's playing out in the background.
Yes,
What about that?
definitely. So, for anyone that doesn't know what secondary gain is, it's the benefit of having a problem. And so when I deal with clients, we go through a secondary gain because it's very important to work out any secondary gains, because it's like a tug of war. If you're trying to go in one direction and there's something pulling you back, then you're never going to go in the same direction. So going through and kind of getting rid of these limiting beliefs and making sure that person feels that they can still, or basically disattach that. So they can still have the lessons and the learnings and understand that they can take that into the future without attaching it to the need to eat chocolate. And that's quite a sort of a brief answer. It's difficult to explain, but you can still have that assurance to yourself that you are able to deal with the situation or think about it in the right way, but disattach it from the chocolate.
It's almost like you can heal and have chocolate rather than heal because of the chocolate.
Yeah. So things like negative emotions, they would have formed at a time when that was useful for you. And so just to briefly go into negative emotions, there are two types. There's a primary one and a secondary one. So when we have a primary negative emotion, it is to protect us and it's happening in the moment. So anger, fear, things like that. However, a secondary negative emotion is when we have a memory which brings back a negative emotion. And that is not useful to us at all, because if we are feeling an emotion now because of something in the past, then it's not giving us a benefit. It's taking away from our days, distracting our focus. And so secondary negative emotions we need to work on as well, because like I said, it's not helpful to us, but it was in the past.
So what type of people or who would this approach work best for?
So basically anyone that struggled to lose weight and feels like they have cravings and they just don't know how to make decisions around food. So a lot of people, I guess, because emotional eating or fat loss is an emotional problem, because any decision you make is based around how you feel. And so I would say most people, when they do diets, they're just using the plaster effect by going on a diet and trying to follow a plan without solving these other problems. It's a battle because you're having to, sort of resist things around you. And it's always going to be harder like that. And there's always going to be that time where you can't wait to stop the diet. And then what happens? The weight comes back on. So,
and is there anyone that this approach would not work for?
I would say, let's think. There might be people that, trying to think if there's any. Most people have similar problems. I'd say maybe a child who needs to lose weight, because it might be simpler because they have less conditioning, and a child, it sounds terrible, would act more like a robot in terms of they are affected less by stuff that's happened to them in terms of emotions. So you can give children food, and they can leave half the plate when it's like the most delicious cake and everything. But yeah, for most people, like, this is what they need, because it's these other layers of things that they have not had before. They say, I've tried everything, but what they mean is they've tried every single different way of counting food. What they haven't tried is actually this other stuff, the other layers that actually make it easy to solve the problem long term.
And is there anything else you want to add to that?
There's a lot of stuff, but I need to not talk too much, because otherwise I'll be here for the next 3 hours.
I know. So how can your coaching help?
Well, like I have explained today, anyone that does feel they suffer with emotional eating, that want to lose weight, not necessarily, a lot doesn't have to be anything really, but it's the emotional eating side as well, that has struggled and has tried other things, including therapy, including going to the doctor. I have a nurse client at the moment who has tried amphetamines to lose weight, and she's a nurse. So people go to extreme things. So people that have tried a lot of things I work with, who feel they've tried everything.
Excellent. And so where can people go to sign up for some help, or at least just a chat to see if it's a good fit?
Yeah, well, I'll have to chat to anyone, like no pressure chat. So I have, I think I've dropped my email somewhere here on this page.
So we have facebook.com/groups/binge group, dead easy to remember, and I'll also stick it into the chat. Is there anywhere else that they can grab you?
So you can email me. My email is harry@harrysnell.com. That should be somewhere posted. I can't see where it's posted. Or just add me on Facebook and send me a message. Probably easiest way.
I am going to pop that up there. So harry@harrysnell.com. And that's your website, so they can go on and have a look on there as well.
Yeah. My website's not great, so.
Okay, no worries.
But yeah, probably the easiest way is just send a message on Facebook, find me on Facebook. And
just joining your group is probably the easiest way for them to like learn a bit more about you, or is there anywhere else?
Yeah, so in my group, I do weekly trainings and stuff, free weekly trainings. My YouTube channel, which I've linked here as well, I do a weekly video about different topics. So yeah.
Cool. Well, listen, this has been so insightful. Like, I've got loads from this. If anyone really is identifying with a lot of this and feeling this stuff, and I could see there was a lot of comments in here, then please reach out to Harry and get some help with this, because like, you don't need to feel that way anymore. Get into shape for summer and all of that kind of stuff. So I will also add Harry's details onto the bottom of each video. I'll make sure that they're uploaded. And if you do struggle to get hold of him, just drop me a message or drop Harry a message and we'll get back to you. So
can I just say as well?
Yeah.
A lot of people come to me thinking they're broken. If you have an emotional eating problem, you are not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just an accidental thing that your brain has learned, and it's just not helping you at the moment in terms of where you're trying to go with your life. So yeah, don't feel like there's something terribly wrong.
Amazing. Great note to finish on. I love it. Cool. Thanks so much. We're getting loads of nice comments and stuff, but hopefully you get to help a whole load of people after this.
Awesome. It was great to be here.
Take care. Cheers.